The bright yellow bike lay on its side, a splash of color against the muted greens and browns of the mountain path. It was a beautiful May morning in Silver Creek, Colorado. The sun was shining, birds were singing, yet something was wrong. The bike belonged to Rachel Donovan. It was found abandoned near the entrance of Silver Creek Canyon. Her helmet rested a few feet away as if tossed aside. Rachel, a beloved member of the Silver Creek community, had been missing since the previous day, Mother's Day. The discovery of her bike sent a chill through the picturesque mountain town. This was not like Rachel. She wouldn't leave her bike like this. She wouldn't miss a planned brunch with her daughters. The idyllic facade of Silver Creek began to crack, revealing a chilling mystery beneath. Rachel Donovan, a vibrant woman with a contagious laugh, seemed to have it all. Her presence was like a ray of sunshine, brightening the lives of everyone around her. Friends and family often marveled at her ability to juggle her responsibilities with such grace and joy. She was a devoted mother to two beautiful daughters, 10-year-old Lily and 8-year-old Emily. Rachel's bond with her daughters was unbreakable. They were her pride and joy. Every weekend they would embark on little adventures, exploring parks, having picnics, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. Her husband Daniel was a successful architect. His career was demanding, but he always made time for his family. Daniel's dedication to his work was matched only by his love for Rachel and their daughters. Together they were the picture of a perfect family. They lived in a charming Victorian house on the outskirts of town. The house, with its picturesque garden and welcoming porch, was more than just a home. It was a sanctuary where love and laughter thrived. It stood as a testament to the life they had built together. Life in Silver Creek was quiet, almost idyllic. The small town, with its close-knit community and serene surroundings, was the perfect place to raise a family. Neighbors knew each other by name, and there was a sense of security and belonging that permeated the air. Mother's Day had started like any other Sunday. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and the Donovan family was ready to celebrate. Rachel woke up to the smell of breakfast wafting through the house, a tradition that Daniel and the girls had lovingly upheld for years. Daniel and the girls had breakfast ready for Rachel when she came downstairs. The table was set in the garden, adorned with fresh flowers and Rachel's favorite dishes. Laughter filled the air as they enjoyed their meal, cherishing the simple moments that made life so special. After breakfast, Rachel announced her plans for a bike ride. It was her usual Sunday routine, a cherished time for her to unwind and connect with nature. She loved the freedom and tranquility that cycling brought, a brief escape from the hustle and bustle of daily life. It was her usual Sunday routine. Rachel would often ride through the neighborhood, greeting familiar faces and taking in the beauty of her surroundings. Her bike rides were a time for reflection, a chance to clear her head and appreciate the simple joys of life, a chance to clear her head and enjoy the beauty of the Colorado mountains. The majestic peaks and serene trails provided a perfect backdrop for her thoughts. Rachel found solace in the mountains, a place where she could truly be herself and find peace. She kissed her daughters goodbye and promised to be back for their traditional Mother's Day brunch. The girls waved her off with smiles, looking forward to the special meal they had planned. Rachel's heart was full as she pedaled away, thinking about the wonderful day ahead. That was the last time anyone saw Rachel Donovan. As the hours passed, Daniel and the girls began to worry. The bike trail, usually bustling with activity, seemed eerily quiet. The sense of unease grew with each passing minute. She never returned for brunch. The table, once filled with anticipation and joy, now stood empty. The food remained untouched, a stark reminder of Rachel's absence. The festive atmosphere had turned into one of dread and uncertainty. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Daniel's calls, once a source of comfort, now echoed with silence. Each unanswered ring heightened their anxiety as they desperately tried to reach her. The realization that something was terribly wrong began to sink in. Worry soon morphed into fear. Friends and neighbors joined the search, their concern mirroring that of Daniel and the girls. The community, once a haven of peace, was now gripped by a collective sense of dread. Every corner of Silver Creek was scoured in hopes of finding Rachel. As the sun began to set on that Mother's Day, casting long shadows across Silver Creek, the search for Rachel Donovan began. The once vibrant town was now cloaked in uncertainty as the community rallied together, determined to uncover the truth behind Rachel's disappearance. The Silver Creek community rallied together, determined to find Rachel. Volunteers fanned out across the mountain trails calling her name, their voices echoing through the canyons. The sheriff's department launched an official investigation. Search and rescue teams combed the rugged terrain, aided by helicopters and search dogs. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Rachel. The initial search efforts yielded few clues. Her bike and helmet, carefully collected and analyzed, offered no concrete answers. The community held on to hope, but fear and suspicion began to creep in like the mountain fog. The investigation continued. Detectives interviewed friends, family, and anyone who might have seen Rachel on that fateful day. They meticulously pieced together her last known movements, hoping to find a lead, a clue, anything that could bring Rachel home. Section 4. Cracks in the Façade, the Unraveling of a Marriage. This chapter delves into the complexities and hidden truths behind the seemingly perfect union of Rachel and Daniel Donovan, a couple whose life appeared idyllic from the outside but was fraught with underlying issues. As the investigation deepened, the seemingly perfect life of Rachel and Daniel Donovan began to unravel. The Donovans were well known in their community, often seen as the epitome of a happy, successful couple. They had a beautiful home, thriving careers, and were active in local events. However, beneath this polished exterior there were cracks that only became visible under the intense scrutiny of the investigation. Whispers circulated about their marriage. Neighbors and acquaintances began to share their observations, noting that the couple's interactions had seemed increasingly strained over the past year. The once frequent public displays of affection had dwindled, replaced by curt exchanges and visible tension. What had once appeared to be a strong bond now seemed strained, fraught with unspoken tension. Friends and family members recalled instances where Rachel and Daniel had argued over seemingly trivial matters, their disagreements hinting at deeper, unresolved issues. The couple's social media profiles, once filled with happy photos and loving messages, had become sparse and impersonal. Friends revealed that Rachel had confided in them about feeling unhappy. She had expressed feelings of isolation and dissatisfaction, mentioning that Daniel had become increasingly distant and preoccupied with his work. Rachel's friends noted that she had seemed particularly troubled in the months leading up to her disappearance, often seeking their advice and support. She had considered asking Daniel for a separation. Rachel had even gone as far as to research legal options, and had spoken to a lawyer about the possibility of ending their marriage. Her friends were aware of her internal struggle, torn between her desire for independence and her hope that things might improve. Daniel, initially cooperative with the investigation, became increasingly withdrawn and evasive. His behavior raised suspicions among the detectives, who noted that his responses to their questions became more guarded and inconsistent over time. Daniel's colleagues also mentioned that he had been unusually stressed and distracted at work in the weeks before Rachel's disappearance. His alibi for the morning of Rachel's disappearance was shaky at best. Daniel claimed to have been working on a project in his home office, but there was no one to corroborate his story. His phone records showed a flurry of activity that morning, including several calls and messages that he could not adequately explain. He claimed to have been working on a project in his home office, but there was no one to corroborate his story. The detectives found it odd that someone working from home would have no digital footprint to support his claim, such as emails or logged work hours. This lack of evidence only added to their growing list of concerns. The investigation uncovered further inconsistencies in Daniel's account. His timeline of events did not match up with witness statements and other pieces of evidence. Detectives began to piece together a different narrative, one that suggested Daniel might have been more involved in Rachel's disappearance than he was willing to admit. He claimed to have no knowledge of Rachel's plans that day, yet her phone record showed a text message from him, asking her where she was going for her bike ride. This contradiction was particularly damning, as it indicated that Daniel had been aware of Rachel's movements, and had possibly been tracking her activities more closely than he had admitted. The picturesque facade of their marriage crumbled under the weight of scrutiny, revealing a darker, more troubling reality. The investigation painted a picture of a relationship that had been deteriorating for some time, marred by secrets, lies, and unfulfilled expectations. As the truth came to light, it became clear that the Donovans' marriage was far from the perfect union it had appeared to be. Section 5. The Shadow of Doubt. Daniel Donovan's Arrest. 6 weeks after Rachel's disappearance, the investigation took a dramatic turn. The small town of Silver Creek had been on edge, with residents growing increasingly anxious as days turned into weeks with no sign of Rachel. The local police, under immense pressure, had been working tirelessly, following every lead and scrutinizing every piece of evidence. The community's hope for Rachel's safe return was dwindling, and the atmosphere was thick with tension and suspicion. Daniel Donovan was arrested and charged with his wife's murder. The arrest came as a shock to many who knew Daniel as a devoted husband and a respected member of the community. Friends and neighbors were stunned, unable to reconcile the image of the grieving husband with that of a potential murderer. The news sent shockwaves through Silver Creek. The tight-knit community was abuzz with gossip and speculation. People gathered in small groups discussing the latest developments and sharing their theories. The local news stations were flooded with calls, and the story quickly became the talk of the town. Daniel, the grieving husband, became the prime suspect. His demeanor, once seen as that of a heartbroken spouse, was now viewed with suspicion. Every action, every word he had spoken since Rachel's disappearance, was re-examined under a new, darker light. The community's sympathy began to wane, replaced by a growing sense of betrayal and anger. The evidence against him, while circumstantial, was mounting. Investigators had pieced together a timeline that painted a troubling picture. Witnesses reported seeing Daniel acting strangely in the days leading up to Rachel's disappearance. There were inconsistencies in his alibi, and his behavior during police interviews raised red flags. Investigators had uncovered a series of suspicious financial transactions. These transactions, which had initially seemed innocuous, now took on a more sinister significance. The financial records revealed that Daniel had been moving large sums of money in the weeks before Rachel vanished. Large sums of money had been transferred from Rachel's account to an offshore account in Daniel's name. This discovery raised serious questions about Daniel's motives. Why would he need such a large amount of money, and why was it hidden in an offshore account? The financial trail suggested premeditation and a possible motive for murder. They also discovered that Daniel had recently taken out a substantial life insurance policy on Rachel. The timing of the policy, just months before her disappearance, was highly suspicious. The insurance payout, combined with the financial transactions, painted a picture of a man who stood to gain significantly from his wife's death. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence was a bloody hammer found hidden in a crawl space in the Donovan's basement. The discovery of the hammer was a turning point in the investigation. It was a tangible link between Daniel and the crime, something that could not be easily explained away. The blood matched Rachel's DNA. This forensic evidence was the final nail in the coffin for Daniel. It provided a direct connection to the crime scene and left little room for doubt about his involvement. Faced with this mounting evidence, the prosecution felt confident they had a strong case against Daniel Donovan. The combination of financial motives, suspicious behavior, and forensic evidence created a compelling narrative of guilt. The prosecution was prepared to present a case that they believed would leave no room for reasonable doubt. The trial, however, would prove to be anything but straightforward. Despite the seemingly overwhelming evidence, the defense was ready to challenge every piece of it. They argued that the evidence was circumstantial, and that there were other plausible explanations for Daniel's actions. The courtroom drama that ensued would captivate the nation and leave everyone questioning what they thought they knew about Daniel Donovan and the case against him.